Rounding fractions. We use benchmark fractions to round fractions, but that's what we're going to round fractions to, our benchmark fractions. Benchmark fractions are numbers that are easier to work with and to picture than others. Common benchmark fractions for estimating are 0, 1/2, and 1. Let's try 5/6. This symbol, this wavy equal sign that you see after 5/6, this means is approximate to. So we use this symbol whenever we're showing a rounded number or estimated number that we are making an approximation to something. So in this instance, we're going to either determine if 5/6 is closer to 0, if it's closer to 1/2, or if it's closer to 1. Now here's the strategy that is the simplest to use for rounding and making sure that you have accurately rounded it. I'm going to use this denominator 6, and I'm going to turn each of these benchmark fractions into fractions where 6 is our denominator, because that is the denominator of the fraction that we're rounding. So we're going to use 6 for our denominator to make an equivalent fraction for each of the benchmark fractions. Now, what number would we put as our numerator? When we take that numerator and divide by 6, we're going to end up with 0. Well, that would be 0. 0 divided by 6 is 0. What number would we put as our numerator when divided by 6 would make 1? That would be 6. The one fraction 6/6. 6 divided by 6 is 1. Now, what is half of 6? That would be 3. So 3/6 is equivalent to 1/2. Next, what we do is we determine where 5/6 goes. If this is 0/6 and this is 3/6, well then I would know that 1/6 would come about here and 2/6 would be here. So maybe 5/6 would probably end up about here. So that's where 5/6 would be on the number line. Next, I'm going to determine the distance between the 3/6 and 5/6 and between 5/6 and 6/6. So I'm just going to do the distance between the numerators. So between 5 and 3 there is a distance of 2, and between 5 and 6 the distance is 1. So this means 5/6 is closer to 6/6, which is the same as 1. So 5/6 rounds to 1. We're going to use our benchmark fraction. Even though we rounded it to 6/6, we have to use the benchmark fraction, either 0, 1/2, or 1. So 5/6 is approximately equal to 1. Let's try another example. Here we have 2/9. So 9 is going to be our denominator that we're going to make each of these benchmark fraction equivalents. And then I know 0/9 would be the same as 0. And I know 9/9 would be the same as 1. Now, what is half of 9? Well, 4.5 is, but we don't put fractions in numerators, so we're going to use a decimal point. So 4.5 is also written as 4.5. Now, where do you think we would place 2/9 on the number line? If this is 0/9 and this is 4.5/9, 2/9 would probably come between here. So I'm thinking 2/9 is probably around here. So here's where I'm going to put 2/9. Now the distance between the numerators is between 0 and 2 is 2, and between 2 and 4.5 is 2.5. So what I've determined now is the fact that 2/9 is, since it's 2 away here but 2.5 away from here, it is closer to 0/9, which is our benchmark fraction 0. So 2/9 is approximately 0. Let's try the same strategy with rounding mixed numbers. First thing that we're going to do is we're going to write the whole number 1 on each one of these benchmark fractions to make its equivalent. Then 8 is our denominator, so we're going to use 8 for our denominator for each one of these. Now, what numerator would we put here to divide by 8 and then add this whole 1 to make 1? Well, that would be 0. 0 divided by 8 is 0, and 0 plus 1 is 1. what numerator will we put here? When we divide by 8 and then add 1, we would end up with 2. 8 eighths. 8 eighths makes 1. 8 divided by 8 is 1, and 1 plus 1 is 2. Next, what is 1/2 of 8? That is 4. So this 1 and 4 eighths is the same as 1 1/2. Now I need to determine where 3 eighths falls on the 1 and 3 eighths falls on the number line. So if this is 1 and 0 eighths, then this is probably about 1 and 1/8. This is probably 1 and 2 eighths. And this here must be where 1 and 3 eighths goes, because then after it is 1 and 4 eighths. Now I'm going to find the distance between the numerators. Between 0 and 3 is 3, and between 3 and 4 is 1. So 1 and 3 eighths is closest to 1 and 4 eighths, or our benchmark fraction 1 1/2. So 1 1/2 is the benchmark fraction that we're going to write. So 1 and 3 eighths rounds to 1 and 1/2. This is how we use this specific strategy to round fractions to the nearest benchmark.